So first of all, I would like to thank Mindset and the incredible Matach organization, and in particular Avi Warshavsky and Cecilia Weissman for inviting me and hosting me in this forum. I'm going to present a new approach for teaching early age math, an approach which is developed by a company called Slate Science. This company was founded by myself and 3 other individuals who come from different fields. Some of you may recognize Professor Raz Cooperman, who is the chairman of the math department at Hebrew University. And we started this company in order to try to deal with a global pain known as math phobia. Every family seems to have at least one afflicted child or adult, and we believe that low-cost tablets equipped with the right low-cost software can go a long way toward curing this worldwide affliction. Now, how are we going to do it? Well, first of all, we believe in tablets. And we think that within 2 to 3 years, tablets will become the dominating learning and teaching platform, and that they're going to create a major positive disruption in the way we teach and learn. And we want to use this historic opportunity to build a complete math program designed from the ground up for mobile devices. Now, we also are committed to teach not only math proficiency, we also want to expose children as early as kindergarten to the way mathematicians and scientists think and reason about the world. And finally, we don't pretend to teach math. We do want to help teachers, parents, adults, and other people who want to teach children math. We just want to give them tools and empower this very important mission. I'd like to show you some pictures of how our software is presently being used in several schools in Israel. So the software is called Slate Math, and in Israel it's called Eretz Israel Museum. And we see here a school up in Kafar Kara, about 100 kilometers north from here. This is a completely bilingual school. Every subject is taught both in Hebrew and in Arabic simultaneously by 2 teachers who teach in the same classroom at the same time. And as you can see, our software is being used both to support traditional frontal teaching as well as self-practice by the students. If you get closer to the students, it looks like they use exactly the same software, but if you look really close, you realize that this girl is using our software in Hebrew, and the kid who is right next to her uses the same software exactly in Arabic. Our software is presently being used in 25 different languages, and the first version is available freely, and you can download it from the App Store. So I'd like to give you a feeling of what it takes to communicate and play with this software. As you see, the girl here is playing with something that looks like birds. So let me do it with audience participation. And in a few seconds, a bunch of birds are going to fly into the screen, and I'm going to ask you if the number of birds is odd or even. And I request that every one of you will yell at the top of your voice, odd or even. So here they come. Odd or even? Not bad. Next flock. Odd or even? All right, now the next flock is going to be slightly more challenging, and you will have no time to think or analyze. I request that you eyeball the picture and try to give me your best bet. All right, ready or not, here they come. Odd or even? Well, you know, one thing is obvious. The audience around here is divided into 3 groups. You know, those who can count and those who cannot count. So let me put this flock away and do some more basic exercises. See, one way to determine if a number of birds is odd or even is to try to pair them up. So you can take this bird, for example, and move it here, and now it becomes more obvious that this flock is odd. So moving along, what about this formation? We call this, this is a symmetric arrowhead. And we have all sorts of tools here that I don't have time to describe, but one of them is a retractable screen that I can pull down. So, I can use one of these markers to, I'm doing this for Micha Engel, who mentioned us the historic influence that the red marker is made on him, the chalk, I'm sorry. So you can explicitly put the birds in pairs, and then if you want, there's a camera here, you can take a picture of your work and put it on the desktop so you can show it to your teacher or to your parents or friends later on. And so if you divide them into pairs and one bird is left out, we say that the number is odd. If no birds are left out, we say that the number is even. And that's only one way to do it. The other typical way to do it is to divide them into, or to try to divide them into two sets that include the same number of objects. And again, if one bird is left out, the number is odd. Otherwise, the number is even. Once again, we can take a picture of this and save it for future use. And there are all sorts of interesting things to discuss with kids in first grade about these flocks of birds. For example, it looks like any symmetric arrowhead, irrespective of how many birds we have, will always be odd. Because it seems like the lead bird is the odd bird out. However, birds can be moved, and birds actually fly wherever they want. So we can take this bird and put this bird here, and now it becomes the odd bird out. So we see that being odd or even is not a property of individual birds, it's a property of the entire flock, which is an important insight. And also, when you think about it, if you try to divide a number of birds into pairs, like we did, for example, here, is it possible that at the end of the division, 2 birds will be left out? Well, the answer is no, because they will form a pair, and then no birds will be left out. Is it possible that 3 birds will be left out? No, because 2 of them will become a pair, and then only 1 will be left out, and so on. So it looks like irrespective of the symmetry of the birds, and irrespective of how many birds you have, whenever you try to divide them by 2, either 1 bird is left out or no birds are left out. Now this is a very profound insight, and it may well be the very first time that a first-year-old or a kindergarten child is exposed to an algebraic conjecture which is true for all numbers. Now, at this point, the kids will be dying to put their hands on the software. So if this were a regular school, I will ask that they do some practice. And I want to show you some of these practice problems. So here, as you can imagine, we expect the kids to do something like this. And then moving along, we have this flock, which looks very similar to the previous one, and that's the whole point. This is what it's called isomorphism in mathematics, or one form of isomorphism. So we use these examples to show that it doesn't matter how many birds you have. In many cases, the geometry and the symmetry gives away the answer. Moving along, we have this example here, and there are numerous ways to prove that the number of birds here is even. And all of them are sort of done by drawing. Here's this formation, which will not pass very well in some schools in Israel. Then we have this example, which we use to argue that the sum of 2 even numbers gives an even number. And we have this formation, in which we have 2 odd numbers that we are looking at. So, one thing that we can do is we can pair up the 2 odd birds. And this shows that the sum of 2 odd numbers is, surprisingly, an even number. And moving along, now we revisit this flock. And we don't have to work very hard now, because we learned that the symmetric arrowhead is always odd. And we also learned that odd plus odd gives even. And you see, that's how mathematicians think. And that's how kids who are exposed to this activity learn to think as well. Now, just to remind you, and that's a kid playing with a software using a regular marker in Kafar Kara, and it's a wonderful picture, because the teacher on the right is Sausan, that's the Arabic teacher. The teacher on the left is Masha, that's the Hebrew teacher. Both of them are wonderful math teachers. And just to remind you, some of the previous horrors in your life, that's how you probably learned that the sum of two odd numbers gives an even number. Now, this formal proof is very important, no question about it. At the same time, it contains no more mathematical intuition than what we did with these flocks of birds in first grade in Kafar Kara. And what you saw here in this game with the birds is what we call an episode. And an episode is the most basic learning unit that we create. And every episode is designed to address a single math concept, technique, skill, or insight. And it typically entails anything between 5 to 30 minutes of interaction. The episodes are highly modular, richly indexed on standard curricula like the Common Core, or the Israeli math program, or the UK math program, or the table of contents of popular textbooks. The episodes are also highly recombinant, so the teachers can pick and choose whichever episodes they want to support their next lecture. And our experience in the pilots that we ran is that teachers usually use up to 3 episodes in every one of their class meetings. So we are now busy developing a huge repository of such episodes. To give you an idea, it takes about 120 episodes to support a single year of math education. It takes about 780 episodes to support kindergarten to grade 5, which is what we are going to do in the next 12 months. So that's what we are now doing at Slate Science. And in the rest of my talk, I'd like to share with you some aspects of our pedagogy and show how they unfold in the context of our episodes. So, for example, the first aspect that I want to talk is what I call no-nonsense learning, which I think is very important. And to illustrate this, we'll go to we'll pick this episode here. And so a customer comes in with a shopping list and looks like he wants a banana and a pepper. So we'll give them these 2 things, and there's an addition question that follows, and then you can, you can just write 6. And then 6 coins pop up in the counter, you put them in the cash register, and the next customer comes in, and so on and so forth. Now, what is special about this episode is that there is nothing special about it. It deals with the ordinary setting, common object, common context. And I'm emphasizing this simplicity because if you play with tablets, you may have noticed that many new math teaching apps try to sugarcoat the so-called boring math with all sorts of so-called gamification elements, like, for example, number-eating cows, and all sorts of contraptions, each reflecting one programmer's fantasy about how to teach something. Now, at Slate Science, we don't like number-eating cows for 2 reasons. First of all, cows don't eat numbers. And second of all, math is sufficiently attractive in its own right, sufficiently prevalent in the world that surrounds the child, and therefore there's no need to decorate it with all sorts of superficial metaphors. We believe that math should be taught using familiar scenarios like counting animals, hanging balloons, decorating cakes, and so on. And therefore, no-nonsense learning is very important in our pedagogy. Another virtue that I'd like to stress is reinforced learning. And one way to illustrate it is in the context of counting, which is the fundamental ability to add 1 to a given number and to associate a bunch of apples with the number 6. So let me give you, once again, an example of how we deal with counting. So the first activity deals, that I'm going to illustrate, deals with counting fish. So a bunch of fish come in, and I can sort of touch them in order to record my counting and write the answer. Another school of fish should come in. So I can do this. As you will notice, we use this opportunity to sneak in an intro of addition and to to put the seed into the notion that addition is actually an extension of counting, as I will show later on. So this is one form of counting, going from objects to number. But there are numerous other cases of counting. For example, this activity here, in which you're asked to produce a necklace. So, I can start building this necklace. And, oh, by the way, I'm making a mistake. Now, you will notice that we never say incorrect. And we never use a stick. We give lots of carrots. And if you make a mistake, the only thing that we do is we kind of jitter a little bit the question to give a feeling that you're not done yet. There's more work to do. So I think we have to put another one of these, and now we are done, and we have to create another necklace and so on. So see, here we go from number to object. It's the opposite of what we did before. And here's another example of counting, in which we are asked to count a bunch of animals which roam out there. And in particular, we have to count elephants. So, we count 3, but it's a panorama. So now we have to sweep the picture and remember 3. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 5. And that's the end of the picture. So 5 seems to be the right answer. So this activity trains you to keep a running total in your mind and add 1 to it over space. And we have the same activity done over time. You have to count birds. By the way, we have a very striking audio effects. You can hear the wind flowing, and I don't remember how many we had. Okay, I didn't give the right answer, so I got the hint. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, and so on. So this is an example of counting, phased counting over time rather than over space. Now, the point that I'm trying to make here is that we teach counting in 15 different ways. Okay. And I'm not sure that it's enough, because if you teach a math concept with a single metaphor, the child tends to associate the concept with this single metaphor, especially if the metaphor is strikingly gamified. And by doing this, the child, this fixation prevents the child from understanding that math is an abstract world. And there's an association between this abstraction and the real world, but they're not the same thing. And for example, the number 5 is not an object, it's an idea, it's an abstraction. The number 5 is the name of an endless set that contains all the sets in the world that contain 5 things, like 5 students, 5 professors, 5 conferences, 5 seats, 5 tables. Take all these sets together, put them in this infinite set. The name of this set is 5. So what we want to do, obviously you can't give this explanation to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, but what you can do is give them numerous examples so that they understand at some point that the number 5 kind of hovers somewhere above all these examples. So it's not 5 that you want to teach them, you want to teach them the notion of 5-ness, or 6-ness, or 7-ness. And you can do it by using many such tricks. I think I'll skip some of my examples because I have so many of them and not enough time. And by the way, everything that I showed here, that I show you today, was created by a super talented team of developers and artists, and some of them happen to be here in the conference. So is Shil Peled here? Shil? No, Leo Chasson. Leo Chasson is here. Please stand up. So Leo is one of our senior content developers. And is Philip Pekar here? Philip? Alex Bernstein? Our genius artists? No, they are not here. Too bad. Well, hopefully they are back in the office developing episodes. So I would like to end with one more virtue of our pedagogy, which is spiral learning. Math mastery is built in layers. One layer on top of the other layer, and every layer supports not only the layer above it, but many layers above it. It's like building a cathedral. And it's very important to create this sort of, excuse me for the term, epistemological intuition in the mind of the child. So for example, if you think about addition, how can you explain what is A plus B? Well, one way to explain it to a child who learned to count is to say that A plus B is to add 1 to A, B times. So you count up to A, and then you continue counting up to B, and the number that you get is A plus B. So what we do is we develop families of related episodes. So for example, the episode on the left is what you saw before. 3 or 4 weeks later, the child will get a version of the same episode in which at the end of the activity, we ask a very simple question: how many beats do we have altogether? So we get 2 nice things here. First of all, the child works with a familiar episode, and they are always happy to reconnect to something that they saw before. We also plant the seed here for the notion of a common denominator, because we have various types of beads, and we ask how many beads do we have altogether. There's a common denominator. It really helps later on when you teach fractions. It's the very beginning of getting into doing a common denominator in fractions. But in general, you want the child to realize that something that he mastered 3 weeks earlier is directly relevant to what he or she is doing today. And this sort of gestalt view of mathematics is extremely important and very central, not only to the way mathematicians think, but also to the way I think teachers should think and develop their lectures. So in conclusion, or before I conclude, just one more comment. And this leads me also to the way we develop our contents. We are busy developing a multi-year curriculum, but instead of doing the natural thing, which is developing first kindergarten and then year 2 and year 1, year 2, and so on, we look at the entire curriculum and we try to identify themes that cut across vertically across the curriculum, geometric themes, algebraic themes, patterns themes, and so on. And we develop families of episodes that support these themes during the curriculum. And by doing this, we try to create this, once again, what I call the Gestalt view that everything is connected. Now, you can do it in many other fields as well, not necessarily in math and science. You can also do it in arts and history. But in math, this build-up is ingrained. It's in the DNA. You can really make it shine. So I hope that, one thing that you probably saw in my presentation is that there's nothing really too special about our pedagogy, and we are proud in it. I'm a very kind of back to basic kind of guy. And the stuff that we teach here is quite similar to the way I was taught math 50 years ago, before all sorts of models from California began to ruin it. And so this is old-fashioned math, but don't deceive yourself. The fact that it's simple does not mean that it's simple to implement it, because it would have been much easier to create multiple choice questions and things of this nature. But we think that the best way to learn math is direct, hands-on exploration and manipulation, and therefore we have to work very hard to create a very rich user experience. And importantly, we believe that in the era of mobile devices, learning can occur anytime, anywhere, but there's no replacement to human touch, and therefore we don't pretend to teach math. We do pretend to help teachers teach math. Now, according to Bertrand Russell, mathematics, rightly viewed, possesses not only truth but supreme beauty, sublimely pure and capable of a stern perfection such as only the greatest art can show. And with that in mind, our goal is not limited to developing math proficiency only. We are equally interested to endear math on children and to kindle an affinity not only to quantitative reasoning but also to science in general. Math proficiency provides a foundation to becoming a rational, productive, and self-reliant person. And helping children build this foundation is our overriding passion and commitment. Thank you. And now I'm going to break my tablet, so just a minute.
Thank you, Shimon. Let's get back to our hashtag. So the question from Ishai is, in your software, do you enable teachers and students to create their own episodes, or are they all implanted from outside?
Yeah, so altogether, as I said, K5 is about 780 episodes, and yet we are busy working on an authoring tool that will enable actually anyone to create episodes. And once we'll have this authoring tool, it will look like a very fancy version of PowerPoint. And then teachers, parents, anyone can create an episode, and we'll create some ecosystem on the web where people can put these episodes and tell other people in the world how they use them in their classrooms.